HVAC done out here, and you've gotta get a plumber out here. Because this is
Yeah.
bad. You're gonna be in bad shape.
Dang.
Yeah.
I was at a meeting yesterday, and one of the guys in the meeting was a plumber. And I said, so where are you
Oh, I
going
guess
now?"
he's real busy,
And
yeah.
he said, well, I've got to go over to the haircutting place down in the road. And he goes, they have a pipe in the interior wall that's busted. I'm like,
I had one, I had one, so my tenant called me.
no, it's that cold now.
Yeah.
We were
No,
good.
I had a tenant call me, and it was inside.
We didn't
So
have any
the main stack that goes up to the ceiling, and then the toilet comes off the main stack. And there was the main water pipe that goes up and then goes horizontally to like the shower, and this side is the kitchen sink, and the toilet.
Yeah.
It was busted inside that wall horizontally. We
Yeah.
had to take out all the kitchen cabinets and open up.
The temperature come up through the crawl space or down from the
What's basement? It was a crawl space.
Yeah.
No, it was just, it froze, yeah, and it busted, and so.
Oh, really?
Well, she had left over the weekend, but I'm sure she wasn't turning it down, I would assume. But, yeah, no, we had to, because the other side, there was tile on the wall, not doing it. So they had to pull the kitchen cabinets out. The drywall, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was gushing.
Yeah, we had to run
She
it.
showed me a video, and it was like just raining down from the ceiling into the unfinished basement.
Oh,
But still,
that's good.
Yeah,
Half the people I
Yeah, it
work
was
with
pretty bad.
work down in Florida.
but she was really good about it. She was just,
68 degrees.
and there was like six. I wasn't allowed. The 2-bedroom. There's like 4 kitchen. Yeah. So it was like the sink and like one on either side, and that's all it was. You know.
We're at Florida.
Is the clock working?
And it was all like tacked together on the top, within the countertop.
Our
was
home
put on, so
office
you
is
pull the
Winter
countertop off,
Garden.
and
It's
it all came out.
right outside
Yeah.
the window.
Wasn't too bad. At some point. It only cost me like
So that's good. Yeah.
I definitely could have been worse.
Okay.
Yeah. 450 is not terrible.
That's an awful airport to go through.
Yeah, I would imagine people like that
big
work
fan.
for those like disaster restoration.
I think it's a deal,
It-
right? But Roger always.
If
So
you're
is it
working for like a surf
Central
pro
Florida
or
then?
one of these
University?
restoration companies,
Florida, okay.
I'm sure they are slammed and
Gotcha.
they're probably charging bukus.
Well, there really wasn't any remedial to be done.
okay.
Because it just felt.
Sure, it's
My basement's awesome. My basement's unfinished and I had to water it back up. So there's a floor drain in the basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care of it.
That's not bad. I didn't know that he's
Don't do what I did, which was or go back to that drove me nuts.
I go down there and
But now that, what's his face?
I just ran the dishwasher, so
US
it's
is is it running?
but
Ulkemeyer? Yeah, that,
what do I do? Like,
It's not too bad.
But
A couple
fortunately,
$100.
they came and
You just
snaked
cable
it,
to the.
cable it,
Oh,
whatever.
that happened all the time. All the time.
Yeah, I went ahead and got
It
a master's degree and I
back
went
through, and I was like,
helped me
oh,
all.
here it's just like 2 3 months on the road.
That done on a
Put all the
regular
money I spent on that towards my house.
basis. And they're not flush, you know, so, yeah, they're clogging up. Making sure where it's handle while clogging. I mean, it's, I probably have that done. I have 29 houses, so I probably have that done 5 or 6 times a year, you know, whichever house it is, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we're gonna get started here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people think I'm crazy. They're like, how could you get 29 houses? I'm like, I'm one at a time.
Project management, you don't get to get
Two
a
or
master's
four
degree for
places.
that.
So that's 8 of them, so it's really only 21 houses.
How do you get stuff done and
Yeah,
delegate?
22 houses, we call it now.
But it's still all those people who shut down payments from, dealing with all that.
Well, yeah.
Well, so I use something called apartments.com. So it's all free and it's digital and it direct
So you have
deposits.
that,
And
that's
then if they're late, it automatically gives them late fees, sends them an email.
Perfect.
A lot of
You guys
things are
ready?
automated. Yep.
Is there?
All right, this time I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask everybody please mute and turn off cell phones if you've got those, and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Applications for conditional use permits and rezoning requests will be heard during tonight's meeting, and the commission will vote on these applications and make recommendations to the county council. The applications will then be scheduled to be introduced to the county council at the Monday, February 12th meeting. Public comment for conditional use permits request will be taken during tonight's meeting and at the council meeting on Monday, February the 12th. Public comment on any conditional use permits will not be taken at any other meeting of the county council held thereafter. Applications for preliminary plats heard during tonight's meeting will be voted on by the Planning and Zoning Commission during this meeting. The vote on preliminary plats are final. Only recommendations for denial of the preliminary plat will be heard before the county council at their Monday, February 12th meeting. The following documents are introduced as a matter of record for tonight's meeting: the Unified Development Ordinance of St. Charles County, including the zoning maps, the year 2030 master plan for St. Charles County, which includes year 2030 future land use plan map, and the rules of order and procedure for Planning and Zoning Commission adopted by Resolution 2101. Appears we have quorum. We have a motion to open the meeting.
So moved.
Your second?
Second?
All right, just a little bit of background on the way the meeting works is I'm going to introduce the zoning map request or the conditional use request to the record. We'll then ask the applicant to come forward and staff will have comments, and then we will open up for public hearing. At that time, I will have to swear you in. You will then obviously give your public hearing limited to 3 minutes. At the end of that 3 minutes, we'll call up the next person. I will say if you plan on speaking, to fill out one of these speaker cards. They're down there on the table. That way we'll have your name and address for the record appropriately. So that everybody is aware, Mr. Ellis is joining us remotely. He is out of town, so he is here with us and watching the screen, but will be joined by audio. And the first item on our agenda is election of the 2024 Planning and Zoning Commissioner officers. So at this time, I'd like nominations for the positions of Secretary, Vice Chairman, and Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move this to the end of the meeting, if that's possible, if you guys are willing to do that.
Yeah.
Is it okay with that?
Yep.
All right,
Sounds
we'll
Motion need a second and actually,
make a motion to table this toward the end of the meeting. If there's a
Motion.
Take a second.
Actually,
All in favor,
point of
say aye.
order, I apologize. To vote on these things, you have to have the chairs, the positions elected first and everybody in their
Oh, he can't.
places, because this is 2024, so we have to have everybody vote.
Mr. Ellis, can you hear us?
Yes,
Are you willing to serve again as chairman?
yes,
All right.
That made that one easy.
Well, then I will remove my motion to table this till the end of the meeting, and I'll make a motion to retain the current slate of officers.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
I guess that's okay with me. I guess we should probably ask if that's okay with you.
Oh, I don't care. I just seconded it, so it's obviously okay.
Do we need to vote each individual or not? I mean,
Yeah, we should vote each individual
Okay.
one, yeah, so nominate Roger first, yeah.
let's get it right.
Yes,
All right.
So I make a motion.
appreciate it.
To nominate Mr. Roger Ellis for chairman.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second for Mr. Roger Ellis for chairman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any objections?
abstain,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he
Yes, he
abstained.
just said yes.
He abstains.
Understandably.
I thought he said, "Hey, Craig." Maybe he's backing out of it or something, you know? So you want to make a motion for Kyle?
Yeah.
To Kyle.
Yep.
All right.
I'll make a motion for vice chairman for Kyle Shell.
Second?
So a motion and a second to elect Kyle Shell for vice chairman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
aye,
I'll abstain this time. That passes, and we'll now seek a motion for secretary.
I'll make a motion for Jennifer Barr for secretary.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for Ms. Barr for secretary. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And I will abstain. Since we're doing that.
All right. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Thank you all.
All right, seeing none, we'll move into our first action item and move on to the zoning map amendment request for 2153 Wilmer Road. This is application number RZ 2317. Property owners are Kevin and Michelle Murray. The applicant is Mike Hebert Insurance Agency. This is currently zoned agricultural, moving to office district. The master plan recommends commercial land use. This is 1.94 acres at 2153 Wilmer Road, located in Council District 2. Staff.
The applicant proposes to rezone 1.94 acres from agriculture to CO office district for the purpose of relocating his insurance agency. The applicant's proposed use as an insurance office would be permitted by right as insurance agents and broker services in the office district. The future land use plan calls for commercial and medium density residential for the parcel and surrounding properties. The parcel is surrounded by agriculture zoning and single-family dwellings, and it is served by its own on-site sewage treatment system. A single-family home was constructed in the 1800s, as well as two accessory structures in the 1960s. The applicant intends to remove one of the accessory structures and rehabilitate the exterior facade of the single-family dwelling to match the new construction design in the area. In terms of roadway and traffic, the existing right-of-way on Wilmer Road is 50 feet, and St. Charles County thoroughfare plan shows that Wilmer Road is needing a right-of-way of 80 feet. If the rezoning were granted, an administrative site plan would address additional right-of-way dedication, parking, entrances, landscape buffering, and stormwater detention. The proposed rezoning does align with the future land use plan as it calls for commercial. Rezoning would allow for uses to be developed and found in the CO office district. However, the scale and intensity of potential uses would be limited due to the lack of public utilities at the site. There is one letter of opposition and one letter of concern on file. Staff recommends approval for the proposed rezoning.
Any questions for staff? Applicant? Is the applicant here? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
State your name and record. State your name and address for the record.
Mike Hebert, 5104 Haston Court, St. Peters, Missouri, 63304.
Go ahead, sir. Anything to say?
No, in reviewing a couple of the concerns that came forward to me, a couple plans that I'll share is, on average, as far as traffic count that comes into my office, I've been compiling a list. I would have about 15 customers that routinely come into my agency. My plan is to be a long-term tenant there, 25, 30 years. Whatever's needed to stay in good graces of the neighbors, I'm willing to do that.
When you say 15 a day or a week or a month?
A month, yes, ma'am, a
15
month.
a month.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. I'm
Mo-
guessing most stuff is virtual or?
Yes,
email.
COVID set us forward several years with technology. Most people don't want to go into their insurance agent's office any longer. It's a phone call, it's an email. Very rarely do we even get faxes any longer.
Where are you located currently?
I'm currently located at 4211 South Old Highway 94, 3 doors down from the DMV, in a shared office with another State Farm agent.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This time we'll open it up for public comment for application number RZ 23-17. Anyone wishing to speak on this application? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, members of the commission. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, County Public Advocate.
And I'm not opposing this rezoning. I agree with this rezoning of the commercial usage. It's going to be a low impact to this really growing corridor of both the city of Wentzville and unincorporated St. Charles County. Wilmer Road is a very heavily used area. Look at increased major traffic month after month as more subdivisions and more neighborhoods are being built. That roadway needs major improvements, major safety improvements, needs to be moved to at least a third lane, possibly 5 lanes, 2 north and southbound lanes, and 1 turning lane. The right-of-way, in terms of the 80 feet, I want to make sure that the applicant donates that to the county, so there's no additional expense to county taxpayers. Otherwise, I'd like to see unanimous approval and recommendation of the rezoning to the county council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? At this time, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Any questions for applicant or staff?
So, Robert, Mr. Dienoff brought up right-of-way, and I know you guys have had some in your analysis on this. We cannot require the Murray, the people who own it, because Mike's just renting this, right? So how do we require someone who owns the property currently just on a rezoning to dedicate additional land?
It's not part of a rezoning,
Right.
but at the time of a plat or a site plan approval, the county will often request right-of-way donation if it's not a state highway, if it's a county right-of-way.
Right.
Now, if they choose not to do that at the time that the right-of-way would be needed, then the county would be in the position of having to purchase that right-of-way at that time for whatever the appraised value is. But one thing we do is regardless of whether or not right-of-way is dedicated, we ensure that any future improvements stay out of that right-of-way expansion area. So for instance, someone doesn't build a parking lot within a future right-of-way expansion area and have their parking lot taken out. So I guess at a minimum, at the time of the site plan, we ensure that any parking that's built would be far enough back that it wouldn't be, taken or destroyed by the right-of-way expansion.
And so his anything he presents will not come before us any longer, is that correct or not? That he presents some changes on that property if we approve the rezoning?
Only if it would be a plat, that's the only time I could think of. So if it were a site plan, that would be reviewed by county staff, and it'd have to meet all of the site plan requirements to a T.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll seek a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve RZ 23-17.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Mrs. Barr, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Bamer?
Yes.
Mr. Cornwell?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm?
Yes.
Ms. Kushner?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Moving on to zoning map amendment request for 965 Sycamore Drive. This is application RZ 2318, owned by St. Charles County Ambulance. Applicant Citywide Alarms. The current zoning is R1E, proposed zoning is C1. The 2030 master plan recommends commercial land use. The rezoning area is 0.8 acres located at 965 Sycamore Drive. This is in County District 7. Staff.
All right, like the last application, this is a proposed zoning map amendment. Sycamore Drive is what I would describe as essentially a residential drive that goes south of Old Highway 94. Generally speaking, it's south of 364, east of Youngerman or Jungerman, whatever your preference is. And the parcel itself is owned by the ambulance district. As I understand it, it used to be owned by the fire district. And the building that's there is an institutional building. It could be set up, it was probably designed with the fire department in mind. It has, the bay doors. But having said that, it has kind of a residential or low-scale commercial feel to it because it's sided with brick and it has a pitched roof. So it kind of lends itself to between commercial and residential. The architecture fits in relatively well in a residential area, despite its use for institutional purposes. The master plan actually shows south of Old Highway 94 a 400-foot depth future commercial. And this recommended future commercial, 400 foot in depth, includes what's now multiple residential properties. So the vision is essentially that someday, whenever opportunities arise, multiple properties would be combined and then redeveloped for commercial purposes. And the thought behind not just rezoning that portion that fronts on Old Highway 94 is that that's too shallow. In other words, it would create like a strip commercial situation. The idea is if you have deeper lots that are commercial, you can have more meaningful commercial development for purposes of, egress and parking and just the building scale and things like that. That's why the master plan is showing not just the parcel that fronts on Old Highway 94 as commercial, but also this parcel as well. Now, having said that, the context is pretty uniformly residential, single-family residential all the way around. There's some limited impact office and commercial uses that are along Highway 94, but again, what's surrounding it now is primarily residential. What's interesting is the subdivision of the west, Charles Village number 1 subdivision, that residential street, the master plan also shows that as future commercial. Honestly, the prospect of that is unlikely in the near future unless someone would proactively come in and buy up multiple properties and tear down homes and propose to rezone that residential subdivision. So again, I don't see that, the prospect of that is very likely, meaning that should this property be rezoned to commercial, it's going to have residential behind it, and so any redevelopment of this parcel would need to provide a landscape buffer along the back side, backing up to those residential parcels behind. The zoning district proposed is C1 Neighborhood Commercial District. It's not the C2 General Commercial District. So the Neighborhood Commercial District uses include offices, banks, churches, personal service shops, and retail stores. Potential conditional uses include automobile fuel sales, convenience stores, liquor stores, and restaurants, including fast food restaurants. So you might want to think about the range of permissive uses and conditional uses, and that's like the summary of the potential permissive and conditional uses. The Planning and Zoning Division recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the zoning map amendment request.
Any questions for staff?
Maybe later.
All right, seeing none, is the applicant here? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Lawrence Goldworm, 4447 South 37th Street, St. Louis, Missouri.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. As has been said, we just want to rezone from R1E to C1, so citywide alarms. Let me just get out some notes here. So they can create a business office there. Their business model is such that virtually no one comes to their site. They go out to either the business or the residence that's requiring a building security system. No one actually comes to their site. They might have some small trucks, but that'll be parked in those 2 large bays. As far as proposed work for the interior, very little is being done to the interior or the exterior. Interior, we're going to demolish the kitchen, create a manager's office. We're going to create, where there's an existing toilet, create an ADA toilet, ADA lock sets and hardware on the existing doors, replace flooring and paint at the first and second floor, and no other work is going to be done except for that at the interior. At the exterior, only repair and maintenance work is going to be done, no additions, no changing of what's there now. And I would call the building, as has been mentioned, sort of residential in look because it's got brick, maybe on the scale of a two-story residence. Only repair work, as I mentioned, is going to be done on the exterior, remove the existing salt storage that's on the site that I guess Public Works was using at one time, resurface and restripe the existing parking, tuck point some brick on the rear of the building, replace the signage, the wording on the signage that's there now, or if you prefer, we can take out that monumental signage and the flagpole so it doesn't look as institutional. That's fine with us as well. At the end of all this, the exterior will look a lot better and you won't have any ambulance sirens. So I'm open to any questions.
How many employees?
I'm sorry.
How many employees will be there?
On site, there'd probably be 5 to 10 at the most.
Okay. Are they there all day or?
No, a lot of these go out to sites, building or residential sites for security systems. And a lot of those people, some of them are subcontracted to where they work out of their house, so their vans may not even be there most of the time.
Okay.
What's the hours of operation?
8 to 5.
Monday through Friday?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This time, we'll open up the public hearing for RZ 23-18 at 965 Sycamore Drive. Anyone wishing to speak? You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
John Haganey, 1560 Ramona Lane, St. Charles, Missouri.
Thank you.
My property backs up to the ambulance base, and primarily my concern revolves around, I've seen the interior plans for the building, what they're proposing. That's really not a concern, but as was mentioned in the introduction, they talk about a landscape barrier, but I haven't seen any details regarding the height or the density. There's just no details on that. That's, you know, I don't want to look out my back window and see vans or who knows what in the coming years.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Darrell Kisker, 216 Willis Drive, St. Peters.
Thank you.
With this zoning here, C1 neighborhood, would that allow parking of trucks outside of the building in the parking area?
The question was, would vehicles be allowed outside? And if they're passenger vehicles, yes, they could be stored outdoors.
So that would include trucks?
Passenger vehicles and trucks, yes. Yeah.
Basically pickup type trucks, not large trucks, is what you're saying?
In this zoning district, it shouldn't be heavy construction equipment, such as, grading, dozing,
Are you worried about
backhoes, things
semi-trucks?
like that.
Pardon?
You're worried about semi-trucks?
No, mainly, it'd be more of a delivery type. I know they probably don't have delivery trucks, but just trying to clarify if outdoor parking would be permitted of trucks with this zoning.
Passenger vehicles could be parked outdoors, yes. for
Uh-huh,
Commercial
okay.
vehicles, yeah.
So like a box truck with signage on it, I think is what he's concerned about.
I'm sorry.
And I
Sorry about that.
I think the gentleman said they were gonna park those inside the bays, would make sense. So people don't steal their stuff, I'm guessing, stuff like that.
Yeah, if typical work trucks, passenger vehicles, those can park outdoors. If it's heavy equipment, that would need to be parked indoors in this zoning district.
So box trucks would be allowed outside?
I don't know what you mean by box trucks exactly, but
Like a mail truck size type of thing? Or a
That or
delivery
bigger,
truck?
1-ton truck with a, say, 12-foot box, 8 foot tall,
Like a U-Haul, like a moving
and with
truck.
with the company name on it.
Yeah.
I could see where that potentially could be parked outside for a limited time or something like
Yeah.
that under this district. So if that's your concern, we'll take that into consideration and.
I don't have a problem with it being here, I've got some other properties where it's a little bit more of an issue, and they're sensitive about this truck issue. And that's why I was just curious what this did allow here. So my concern isn't greatly at this one, but just to get a better reference of what is allowed with this zoning. I own the property in front of this one that fronts Old Highway 94. And I have no problem at all with what they're proposing here. I'm just trying to clarify what could be parked outside.
Okay, well, we'll take all that into consideration when we go for the zoning.
All right, thank you very
Thank you
much for your time.
Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and the penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, County Public Advocate. At first, this changing in the zoning from R1E to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District kind of scared me in terms of the fuel possibility, the convenience store, and the restaurant. We heard from the applicant that it's only going to be an office. In my opinion, that's a low impact to this neighborhood. If you go up around the blocks of the neighborhood, you could see there's a nursery, some concrete block, where you can get concrete blocks, landscaping materials. There's various uses in this neighborhood. However, my concern is once we change this designation of zoning, it's forever. And so what happens if this person decides to sell the building again? What if we have a restaurant, a fuel station, or a convenience store? That's my concern for the residences. The applicant said that basically there's going to be a lot of upgrades to this building, compliance with Americans with Disabilities Act and building codes, which I'm all for. To separate the neighborhood commercial from the residential, I'd like to see a type 2 landscape buffer and some large trees planted, not to affect the people that testified before me. And I would recommend unanimous approval, as this is a low-impact business. It could be a lot worse. It could be a lot more heavy traffic and a lot louder noises with other businesses. But if you could address the future of the sale of this business once you change the zoning, and then if you could add an amendment for a type 2 landscape buffer with large trees. Thank you.
Anyone else? This time, I'd like to close the public hearing for RZ 2318. Bring it back to the commission. We've got a couple of questions for the applicant, if you don't mind coming back forward.
I'm already sworn in, I guess, right?
You are.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. Because I was going to lie. No, I'm just kidding.
Look at how honest he is about lying. So what type of landscaping buffer do you have planned now?
Right now, I'm not aware of any landscaping buffer, but we're certainly open to suggestions. That wouldn't provide a hardship at all.
Okay.
So, Robert, would they be required do they have to do a new site plan or anything before they open the business? Where would requiring the buffer come into play?
the buffer would be required if there is a construction of an institutional, commercial or industrial building, any addition to a commercial or industrial or institutional building, or change in the use of land, open land. So It's not necessarily any of those, but I would say if they start building onto the building, that could trigger a requirement to put in a landscape buffer along the back, or any like redevelopment. I would say that would certainly trigger a requirement for that. Now, when I say landscape buffer, for commercial backing up to residential, it would be what's called a type 2 landscape buffer, so there would not be a requirement for a fence. The minimum required would be either a 6-foot deep strip with a continuous hedge planting, or I'm trying to remember, it's 15 feet in depth. But anyway, the alternative to that would be trees, interspersed deciduous and evergreen trees on a 15-foot deep strip. Yeah. So looking at the aerial photograph, it looks like there is some strip of dirt along the back. So at least there'll be an opportunity to someday plant a landscape strip if it would ever be needed back there.
And so why are we doing a rezoning and not a CUP on this? Conditional use, do you have to have it as rezoned first before you can do something? Because once it's changed, I mean, that owner does, 35 years from now, that property could turn into something completely different without us doing anything.
It's restricted on size, though.
Yeah, I know, but still.
Yeah, they're proposing the office district because this particular use is not allowed in a residential district. And so they're proposing not a general commercial district, but an office commercial district, which is less intense than it's more in keeping, I'd say, with adjoining residential areas. So I think that's the thought behind it. The other thought behind it is it's conformity with the master plan, which envisions commercial, the land uses for a 400-foot depth south of Old Highway 94.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of stuff over there like that, but
I think
anytime we change zoning, though,
Yeah, that
Stays
always
with
has
that-
to be
stays
taken.
that way forever.
Right, that always has to be taken into consideration that approval of rezoning is not just for one particular use, but it would allow the range of uses that's allowed in that zoning district, so you have to keep that in mind, too.
So the future land use plan is for full commercial use? And this is less intense than the land use plan?
The master plan just has one size fits all
Okay,
commercial.
sure.
Wouldn't see one be better.
Roger, do you have something to say?
Yes, please. When you mentioned the restaurant and the convenience stores, those are all conditional uses, correct?
Right, yes.
So those kinds of development would have to come back to the commission.
right.
Right, yeah, that's right. The uses that would be allowed by right would be essentially offices, banks, churches, personal service shops, retail stores.
That makes me feel more comfortable.
Yeah, okay.
I'm glad they're repairing the lot. I know it's in disrepair.
Yeah, the whole thing's going to get resurfaced. Anything else for me, or?
Any other questions?
I have another question.
It's like God is talking.
On the schematic I'm seeing, I guess on the second floor, there were sleeping facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Will those remain? Will there be anyone living on site?
No, there won't. Those will be converted to offices. No walls will change, it'll just become an office.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So Robert, you said the institutional use, but it was allowed in the current zoning, which I think's residential. Is it just different because it was a public institutional use and that's why it was allowed in residential and this is a private type of office? I mean, trying to understand the change of use here and how
Yeah.
that triggers the buffer.
Well, let's see.
Because you had mentioned use, and it is a little different of a use because has to get rezoned to fit within that zoning.
Well, site plan is that on? I'm sorry. The site plan is really about primarily about the building. So if they build or enlarge a building, then it triggers site plan.
Sure.
Or if there's a change of use of the land. So for instance, you put in a campground, but there's no buildings involved, then that requires a site plan. A quarry requires a site plan, things like that. This is kind of, there's not really a trigger necessarily to put in a landscape buffer here if there's no construction of a building or enlargement of a building. But I'd say if there ever was enlargement of a building, if it's redeveloped or whatever, certainly at that time they have to put in a landscape buffer The alternative would be for them to elect to put in a landscape buffer when they redevelop it. Honestly, it wouldn't take that much. It's not that expensive because we're just talking about, planting of trees on 20, 25-foot centers along the back portion, along the fence.
Remember, Cornwall, I think to answer your question, because I think there's a little disconnect there, a public building or facility erected by a governmental agency is a permissive use in a residential district in the R1E, and that's
Yeah,
what-
I'm just-
yeah, we're moving over to now, so it's a different, it is a
I'm
different
just
use,
curious,
yeah.
is it a change of use specifically that would trigger that? Because Robert said use earlier, so I'm just getting my head around it. But it sounds like it's similar on what we're discussing, so it's really an enlargement that's gonna trigger that, or something specifically different, so I got you. Did I muddy the water there? Legal? Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
So you would be willing to put in a landscape buffer?
Yes, I was going to mention, if you make that part of the requirement or have us elect to do it, I don't think there'd be a problem.
Can he do it on all three sides, though? I mean, it's just the back, isn't it?
I think we're just talking about the rear, but
Yeah.
let me know if that's not
They're
the
up
case.
by the residents. I don't really see much in the way of, is there room for it? I guess there is.
There's probably the west and south side.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can require it if it's just a strict zoning,
Well, we can put it as a condition, can't we?
not for zoning.
Not for zoning,
Oh, okay.
For a plan, I think.
not for zoning.
Okay. Well, then never mind. There's no reason to discuss it if we don't have the power, I guess.
Any other questions?
Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir.
Public comments closed, sir.
Yeah.
All right, seeing none, appreciate
done?
it, thank
Sure.
you. Pull us back for any further discussion.
I'm going to make a motion to let this gentleman come back up.
I second.
Go ahead, sir.
There we go.
Reopen public.
Yeah, I'd just like to state that I'm a little confused by or surprised, I guess, at the confusion, because the necessity of a landscape buffer is specifically mentioned in your online documentation for this project. So it's,
Well, but we don't have the power to make that happen. Staff will have some say in it, if they do any changes to the property, I'm assuming, right? Otherwise, they can do what they want.
Yeah, I think in terms of a landscape buffer, the way I see that is if the property is redeveloped, certainly they have to put in a landscape buffer. That'd be a requirement.
Right.
Yeah, redevelopment, or if they build a new building, if they expand the existing building, I think those changes would trigger a landscape buffer
Right.
requirement.
And so they're not changing the property and the building, so there's no requirement for it. Is what-
well, it was mentioned in the PDF that you have online.
Well, if
If it's changed.
if the building is changed,
Right.
then
It would
it would require, let's just say that this property will rezone, and with the intention of redevelopment for this office. Let's just say that plan falls through. Someone else buys the property, zone commercial. They decide, we're not going to do an office, we're going to redevelop the site into something else. That would
Trigger.
obviously trigger a landscape buffer requirement, for example.
Yeah.
Well, but the landscape buffer is already mentioned in your documentation.
That's
we wanna-
only if it's changed.
It's only if the outside of the building is changed.
No, it was the way I read the PDF that's online. I mean, you guys could probably put it on the screen here. But it was worded such that that buffer would be designed to separate the commercial aspect from the residential aspect of that area.
Okay.
And, I mean, it's one thing, and it was brought up before, it's one thing if I look out my window and see a couple of vans parked outside. It's a different story if I'm looking at the back of a convenient food mart or a liquor store or whatever. I don't want to be seeing that in the years to come, potentially. Thank you.
And they would have to come back for those type of uses. They'd have to come back here again.
What it says.
Any other comments or discussion? Not, we'll seek a motion to approve RZ 2318.
Motion. Second.
So a motion and a second. to approve RZ 2318. Ms. Kushner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm?
No.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Cornwell?
Yes.
Ms. Bamer?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Barr?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We will now, I'm gonna flip pages here. Now move on to a re-subdivision plat for lot 1075 of St. Charles Hill, Plat 6, Section 2. This is application PRE 2313 by Linhart Properties, engineers Bax Engineering. This is .234 acres. The proposed lots are 2, located at 3001 Elman Road in County Council District 6. Staff.
The applicant proposes to divide an existing 0.234 acre lot from one lot into two lots, I should say. In 1972, a duplex was constructed on the parcel. Subdividing the lot and the structure would allow each side of the duplex to be owned separately. Some adjacent parcels in the area do feature a similar situation where a duplex was divided by a plat. So this proposal would be consistent with the development patterns in the area. No letters have been received, and staff finds that the proposed plat meets the technical requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance.
Any questions for staff?
So essentially, they're just wanting to be able to do this to divide that one building into 2 owners.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? See none, is the applicant here? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Andy Beck, 2605 Cypress Drive, St. Charles, Missouri, 63301.
Go ahead, sir.
We represent, I'm with Bax Engineering. I'm the surveyor in charge of the project, and our client, Linhart Properties, would like to divide the duplex into 2 separate tax lots. And per requirement of the county, this has to be done by a plat. And the first requirement is to have a preliminary plat prepared.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Okay.
This time we'll open up public comment for PRE 2313. Anyone wishing to speak? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. My name is Arnie C. Acedinoff, County Public Advocate. This is a clear case of a duplex that's already existing. It's already built. There'll be no impact to adjoining neighbors of the neighborhood. All they're trying to do is make it into a villa-type situation and asking for a subdivision so they can sell either 1 or 2 of the halves of the property. So since there's no impact, I would ask for unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? At this time, we'll close public comment and bring us back to the commission. Anybody have any questions for staff or the applicant?
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll seek a motion to approve PRE 2313.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve PRE 2313. Mr. Cornwell, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm?
Yes.
Ms. Bamer?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Kushner? Ms. Kushner, sorry.
Yes.
And Ms. Barr?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, this time we'll move on to a conditional use permit at 1078 Terry Road. This is CUP 2323 by Mark and Joanne Milster. The applicant is NSTAAFL Incorporated. This is current zoned agricultural. They're requesting a CUP for a bed and breakfast residence This is on 6.62 acres at 1078 Terry Road in County District 2. Staff.
Well, the property, as you said, is zoned agricultural, and in the agricultural zoning district, a bed and breakfast residence is a conditional use, and the applicant proposes to operate a bed and breakfast residence, which would include the, someone living at the residence, acting as a host to guests, and in this case, they want to convert 3 bedrooms to 3 guest rooms. And that's pretty much the description of what they're applying for. They have a detailed operations plan and marketing plan that's been shared as their conditional use narrative. They're not proposing any exterior changes. The parcel size is, I'm sorry. 5.8 acres. Thank you. 5.8 acres. And the context is it's mostly wooded, but there are residences. In fact, there's one residence right across the street. But other than that, the property is pretty much surrounded by forested land. The parking that they're proposing is the existing driveway, which is long, and so there's plenty of room for off-street parking for guests. I would also say that under St. Charles County's zoning regulations, there are no specific zoning regulations for short-term rentals. And I mention this because under St. Charles County zoning, basically anyone could rent out a house for any length of time that they wanted to, whether it's for 1 year, 1 month, 1 week, or 1 day. Now, the applicants are not proposing to do that. Instead, they're proposing to do a bed and breakfast residence with a conditional use permit, and they could explain the reasons behind that. But I just thought I would point that out. So they're proposing something more than an Airbnb. They're proposing bed and breakfast residence where there's a host always on site, interacting with the guests, providing breakfast at a minimum, potentially dinners and picnic baskets. The county staff report includes analysis, which I won't go over, but I would just summarize it as county staff is recommending for approval for the reasons that are cited in the county's written staff report and with specific conditions. And that's a recommendation.
Okay. Any questions for staff? All right, seeing none, we'll ask the applicant to come forward.
Good evening, sorry.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Joanne Milster. I live at 1078 Terry Road in Augusta, Missouri.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you all for hearing me this evening. I appreciate it. The reason that we want to go for a bed and breakfast instead of an Airbnb or other type of short-term rental is that we appreciate having someone on staff, someone present to greet the guests and to take care of them and to know what they're doing, what they're not doing, and you have more of a say in those kind of things. Our house is a 4-bedroom home. We are now empty nesters, and we're looking for something to do as we're getting older. We also work with a couple of the B&Bs in town. I am a chef by trade, and so I do dinners for some of the B&Bs in town, which is completely, we've talked with Jim Boswell for the food inspection and all that. And although he doesn't inspect residences, he doesn't feel uncomfortable. We've had a restaurant and a bakery in the past. However, the property was sold out from under us in Augusta. It has been recommended that we go into Augusta by one of our neighbors instead of doing it out on Terry Road. However, Augusta has a moratorium on how many B&Bs can be in the town, and it is maxed out at this time. So that would not be an option for us. Augusta is a very high demand area for B&Bs. We get a lot of cyclists on the Katy Trail during the week, and there aren't a lot of options for them. Big Bam, if you're familiar with it, is Bike Across Missouri, where they do the entire Katy Trail. They are doubling the ride this year, so they are also looking for rooms. I do have 2 different bike tour guides that will, companies that are trying to find more rooms. And as the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Augusta, I can assure you that I've talked to all of our owners and to see what we could do to more facilitate use for not only getting food to them, but getting rooms for these people and facilitating, more tourism to the area. We're known for our wineries, we're known, for the Katy Trail, and that's what we want to do. Another concern that I read within the person who doesn't feel it necessary is that there'd be more traffic on Terry Road. Well, with 3 rooms, it'd be a maximum of 3 cars. Given the size of my family, you could see that on any given weekend. But also the bikers, we do understand that the shoulders don't exist on Terry Road. However, a lot of the bike groups do ride up and down Terry. That's it's actually for a couple of the rides, Schulersburg is king of the hill. So if you can make it up, you get some special prize. I'm not sure what it is at this point. The other thing is that we're going to provide a shuttle service. We've already worked this out with either picking them up at Terry and 94, which is about where Sunflower Hill Farms is, or pick them up on the trailhead in Augusta and then run them up by trailer. So that's already been figured out. There's been a large decrease in the amount of rooms that are available in Augusta because of 3 B&Bs closing for retirement and 2 closing or reducing their rooms because of the amount of children they have inside their household. So I don't know what else to say. That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
So it just sounds like you're not making any exterior improvements. Are you adding any signage to the end?
I would put a sign out at the front driveway.
Okay.
Right now, it's just my mailbox with my address, but I would put a small sign so that people would be able to find us.
Yep.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Do you know what the average use of the bed and breakfast that they have currently in Augusta? How often? Is it every day? Is it just weekends?
They're pretty much maxed out in certain months. I mean, in January, you could get a room.
Right.
Don't try it the week of Valentine's Day.
Okay.
And then from about, April to October, I would say it's pretty high right now.
So not in the winter months.
Not in the winter months.
Okay.
You're not going to see them in the winter months.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll
you.
call you back up if we need. This time, we'd like to open up for public comment on CUP 2323 of 1078 Terry Road. Anyone wishing to speak? You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth and the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kelly Dolan, and I live at 5608 Main Street in Augusta, Missouri. And I really have 2 things that I would like to comment about. So I am a current bed and breakfast owner in Augusta. I own the HS Clay House that I've had for about 5 years. And last year I bought the Applegate B&B. So I have 2 properties in Augusta. And one of the things that I would like to bring up is, I know one of the concerns of Joanne's neighbors was that the B&B guests would be wandering around and in their yard. And in the 5 years I've owned the Clay House, I've never had anybody wander onto someone else's property. And I find that B&B guests, by and large, are very respectful. Particularly, Joanne mentioned the groups that come through that are on bicycles, and they're very, very conscientious of the area around them. So I think that is a very invalid concern. I think you'll find that most B&B guests are really great people and we should be welcoming them to our community. It's my understanding that the Katy Trail brings in about 750,000 riders a year, and all of the organized bike tours would tell you that Augusta is a pinch point, that there are not enough rooms to support the number of riders coming through town. So I'm fully supportive of Joanne's efforts to open a B&B, and you might think, gosh, you're asking for more competition, but I know that we can fill more rooms in Augusta. And so I highly support Joanne's efforts. I've worked very closely with Joanne over the last few years. She is the president of our Chamber of Commerce, and I can tell you that there are very few people in Augusta that invest the kind of time that she does in our community, not only as chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, but she's highly involved in our art fair and our Christmas walk, and she really has tried to do things to bring guests to Augusta, which benefit all of the businesses in Augusta. So I can't say enough good things about Joanne and Mark and what they do for the community. And I really think that this should be approved. I think it would be a good thing for Augusta. I think the other concern that I do have, though, is, and it goes to a point that was made earlier, regarding Airbnbs, and, there aren't a lot of rules around what you can and can't do with short-term rentals, but I think that need will be met somehow in Augusta, and my fear is that if Joanne isn't approved and it opens the door for others to do Airbnbs that aren't registered, where they haven't been through a formal process like this. And so I really applaud Joanne for doing the right thing and trying to, dot all the I's and cross all the T's, because I do see examples of Airbnbs that, they don't have smoke detectors and they don't follow the rules, they don't pay the bed tax. And so I think we should welcome businesses that are trying to operate and following the letter of the law. So I highly support Joanne's application, and I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
I guess that Tom wants to talk.
Do we need a translator officially for that? I mean,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Margie Ross, and I live on Terry Road. I'm just down a little ways from Mark and Joanne, and I have to say, this is personal, but I've traveled many, many miles, and my husband and we have stayed in many, many B&Bs. And most of the people that we have ever met, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in across Canada, or whether it's in the United States, I have to say, I've never heard of anyone having any problems with people coming in. And I have to say, being her neighbor, or their neighbors, they're lovely people, and I think that it's giving somebody a bed that would like to be out in Augusta. And I have to say, I'd rather have them sleeping in Joanne and Mark's home than I would in our fields. And that has happened over the years, and I've lived in Augusta for 47 years, and I've never known, I have known, of some campers in our field before it started building up. And I don't know what other neighbors feel, and I don't really particularly care, but I think it's keeping them out of our fields. And so the only thing that I care about is the safety for Mark and Joanne, and because we could use a little bit more police protection out there than what we have. And like I told Mark when he called me today, I said, Mark, we have strangers up and down our road every day. I can remember the day that we only had a postman go down the road. So I have to say, we have strangers if we want them or if we don't, but I think it's really a blessing that they'll open their homes up to somebody that needs a bed. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, County Public Advocate. First of all, I just want to clear up some information about the acreage. In the application, unless there's an error, the application states 6.62 acres. And in Augusta, this is a perfect use of the residents to operate a responsible bed and breakfast offering. The host will always be on site, as was testified to. It's the right thing to do. The use sounds very responsible. In terms of the offering of the 3 rooms, I do have one concern. How do we ensure ADA compliance, or are they exempt from the code because it's less than a certain amount of rooms offered to the public? I don't know if staff can answer that question or not.
I think they're exempt, aren't they?
I can answer later.
So the plot plan needs to be a conforming concept plan. No more than 3 guest rooms as part of the conditional use permit. All parking must occur on the and the sign must comply with section 405.475A1D of the county codified code, and I'm sure there's a sign permit that's required. The recommendation is approval by the County Planning and Zoning Division. I also would ask for unanimous approval to the county of a recommendation to the county council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Jim and Melanie Shields, 5169 Rosemount, Welland Spring, Missouri, 63304.
Thank you.
And I got 4 concerns about the property. Me and my wife own property, two properties down from it. We don't have anything built on it or anything, but it's a nice lot that we planned on building on it, but we had to make changes now. We may try and sell it. I'm concerned about the property values of having a bed and breakfast so close. And number 2 is I got 3 grandchildren that go out there a lot, and they like to, because our property is level, and that's one of my concerns too, is because there's no other property other than Margie's across the street from us that's level to where there might be parking going on there, because it's like a little park, the area our property is. And the 3 grandchildren are from 11 down to 3, and they'd be out there with my son playing on the lot and what have you, and I'm concerned about what I hear about bed and breakfasts. Hasn't been positive the last few months that I've been hearing about it. And I think you guys have an issue, some of them here in the city of St. Charles, with bed and breakfasts that I've heard or read about. And I'm just really concerned and wanted to find out what's going to happen. Okay.
Where did you hear that there was a problem with bed and breakfast?
I'm sorry?
Where did you hear there was a problem with some bed and breakfast in St. Charles? Like what kind of problems?
On Google News.
Oh,
I get
okay.
it on my phone. I get it
Okay.
on my phone, and they
Okay.
tell me that.
Yeah, no
Plus, I have a nephew that lived over right by Lindenwood on Madison.
Okay.
And he just moved.
Sure.
So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak? This time, we will close the public comment and bring this back to the commission. Anyone have any questions for staff or the applicant?
Robert, did you want to answer that question?
About building codes? The building codes were amended a few years ago so that if it's 8 or fewer rooms, the building code, this is my recollection, if it's 8 or fewer rooms, it's treated more like a single-family residence in terms of not having to install sprinklers. But there's still some fire code requirements that they'd have to meet if they're having a bed and breakfast residence. One of the benefits, though, of having a bed and breakfast residence where you have someone, a permanent resident living on site, is if they can manage some sort of a problem. For instance, if the breakers need to be shut off, they know where to go, down in the basement or wherever those breakers are. You know, if it's just a short-term rental and you have no one living there long-term, and someone needs to shut off the breakers, they don't know where those are. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the code treats it essentially like a single-family residence, but it does require some things for fire code purposes.
Okay.
And ADA requirements too, right?
ADA, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if there would need to be any ADA upgrades. I don't know.
Generally, if it's additions or significant alterations to existing properties, you'd have to do with ADA, but if it's generally staying the same.
And we've done that on some
Yeah.
properties when it's going to be more than a few people. So when we did those group homes, those 8 and 10 and stuff like that, there's been some requirements because of that.
Yeah. My recollection is that the code is kind of situational, depending on the level of improvements that are being made. So I don't have like just a cut and dried answer for the ADA requirements, upgrades.
All right. Applicant, would you like to say anything else?
I did have the fire chief from St. Charles County from Augusta Fire come out, and he did ask me to put fire extinguishers on each floor. He asked me to put CO2 registers on each floor, and my understanding is that with less than 3 rooms, with 3 or less rooms, you do not need to be ADA compliant. And I specifically say that in the document that I am not ADA compliant. You would have to climb a set of stairs to get to any one of the 3 rooms.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Any other comments of the commission? Seeing none, we'll seek a motion to approve CUP 2323 with the recommendations provided by staff here on page 4. There are 5 of those, the 5th being that this can't be approved until 1 through 4 are met.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve CUP 2322 with the recommendations from staff here on page 4. Mr. Cornwell, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. Maimer?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Kushner?
Yes.
Ms. Barr?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The remaining items on our agenda remain tabled for tonight. I trust that everybody's reviewed the December 20th meeting minutes, and such will seek a motion for approval.
Motion.
So moved.
There's a motion, there's a second. All in favor of approving the minutes from December 20, say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? And Mr. Meyer, do we have any planning and zoning division updates?
Master Plan Steering Committee has been appointed, their first meeting. We have that scheduled for January 31st. A request for proposals has been issued by St. Charles County to hire a consultant to help both with the master plan process and update the Unified Development Ordinance. We're expecting responses back in the first week of February. Also, you may have not noticed, but Donna Vogt was here earlier tonight, is sitting in the audience for one of the cases. And Donna Vogt with the County Counsel's office retired a few months ago. So we now have some different staff, but I've been working with Donna for years now for everything that comes from this body that goes to the County Council. Previously would go, Donna Vogt worked on that. So it's good to see Donna again and wish her well in retirement.
Anything else we need to bring up? We'll seek a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. We will see you guys next month.
Thank you. Don't you have to say all in favor, say aye?
I think we made a mistake. Yeah, hey, Roger, I think we made a mistake. I should have nominated